Hi there and welcome to Mr. T's Maths. In this video I'll be showing you how to sketch straight line graphs of the form y equals mx plus c and of the form ax plus by equals to c. So let's start with y equals mx plus c. You have to remember that the coefficient of x, the number next to x, m, represents the gradient. So if that number there is positive, then your graph will be looking like that, a line going upwards. And if the gradient is negative, the graph will be looking something like this, a line going downwards. Then C is the y-intercept. It means it's the point where the graph intersects the y-axis. Yeah. So I have prepared here 4 examples. So let's get started and practice. -3, y equals -3x plus 5. -3 here is the gradient, as we said before, is next to x, is the coefficient of x. It's negative, so we know straight away that the graph will be going downwards and it will be intersecting the y-axis at positive 5. So we only have to draw the y and x axis. We know that the graph will intersect the y-axis at 5 and it's going downwards. And this is our sketch. Remember, a sketch is not an accurate graph. Yeah. Okay, the second example. The second example is y equals x minus 3. As you can see here, you might think that the coefficient of x is 0, but remember always that when there is no number next to a letter, that means there is a 1, okay? It's almost like the 1 is wearing that invisible cloak from Harry Potter, yeah? Well, the important thing is to understand that it's positive. Identify that, so the line is going upwards, and then we know that it crosses the y-axis at -3. So I'm going to draw the axis this way, x and y. It crosses at -3 and it goes upwards from there. So this is the line. Now the third example, y equals 4 minus 2x. You might think at first that this looks a bit weird. It's just written the other way around, yeah? We are used to see it as y equals mx plus c, yeah? But these two things are the same. -2 here is the gradient, negative, so the line will be going downwards, and it will be crossing the y-axis at +4. So we draw our axis, +4, we can put that there, and the graph is going downwards, okay? Then, this example, 2y equals 5 plus 4x. Okay, we are used to, we want actually the form of y equals mx plus c. What is important here to note is that y is on its own. So we want to make this y the subject. How do we get rid of these two? Simply by dividing everything by 2. Yeah? Dividing everything by 2. So we end up with y equals 5 over 2 plus 4 over 2, which is 2x. Now, 2 is the gradient, which is positive, and then 5 over 2 is a positive number as well. It's the y-intercept. So we know that the graph will cross the y-axis at 5 over 2. Okay, that's your x. And it has a gradient, a positive gradient, therefore it's going to go upwards like that. So this is the sketch. If you want, you can also find these points here where the graphs intersect the x-axis. Remember, to do so, you simply have to take y equals to 0 to find these points of intersection, but it's not really necessary. That's enough like that. Okay, good. Now let's have a look at graphs of the form ax plus by equals to c. These graphs are just slightly, the approach is slightly different. Okay, you could make y the subject, and write them in the form y equals mx plus c, but personally that's too much work. So when sketching this type of graphs, we simply need to substitute x equals to 0 and y equals to 0 to find those points of intersection of the graph with the x and y axis. Yeah, so let's look at this first example. We can take x equals to 0. Yeah, by taking x equals to 0, we are working out the point of intersection with the y-axis. Then if x equals to 0, this term here disappears, so y will be equal to 3. Similarly, if we let y equal to 0, we are working out the point of intersection with the x-axis. So in this case, y will disappear and we will end up with x equals 3. So we draw our axis. There we go. Y and x. We have just found that y equals 3 and x equals to 3 when y is 0. So we join this with a straight line. Well, make sure you use a ruler, yeah, when you do this. I can't use a ruler on the screen. I'm just doing it by hand. Alright, next example. 2x minus 4y equals to 8. Now we could, in this case, we could actually simplify this because 2, 4 and 8 are divisible by 2. So we could say, let's actually make this simpler and divide everything by 2 in this case. So we end up with x minus 2y equals 4. Okay, so similarly we take x equals 0 to find the y coordinate, the point and the point of intersection with the y-axis. Yeah, so in this case, let me just get rid of that. Okay, so if x equals to 0, this term here disappears, so we end up with minus 2y equals 4, which leaves us with y equals 4 divided minus 2, which leaves us with minus 2. Okay, similarly, when y equals to 0, then this term here disappears and x is equal to 4. So we have our 2 points of intersection with the axis. Okay, actually we need to draw that differently because it intersects the y-axis below, yeah, at a negative point. So I would draw it like that. I don't have too much space. Yeah, so y equals minus 2 here, and it seems like it's going to cross x at 4, so it goes upwards, yeah, at 4. There you go, that's your sketch. Okay, next example. 4x minus 3y equals to 12. As you can see now, 4, 3 and 12 are not divisible by any number, yeah, so we are just going to leave it like that as it is. So we start straight away finding those points of intersection with the x and y axis. So when x equals 0, this term disappears, minus 3y equals 12, and therefore y equals 12 divided minus 3 is minus 4. So y equals to minus 4. When y equals to 0, then this term here disappears and we end up with 4x equals 12. So x equals 12 divide 4, which is 3. So we can quickly sketch this. Y is minus 4 is negative, so I'm going to leave that part a bit longer. Yeah, okay, there we go. Y and x coordinate. We know that it crosses the y-axis at minus 4, and then it's gonna go this way. It crosses x at 3. That's the sketch. And last example, 4y minus 2x plus 3 equals to 0. Now same thing, we take x equals to 0, and therefore this term disappears. So 4y plus 3 equals 0. Now if we move this 3 on the other side and then make y the subject, we end up with y equals minus 3 over 4. You'll agree with me on that? So negative. And when y equals to 0, then this term here disappears and we end up with minus 2x plus 3 equals 0. Now I'd move this to the other side so it's positive. So 3 that becomes 2x, yeah? So 2x, 3 equals 2x, which leaves us with x being 3 over 2. Okay, so let's quickly draw that. 3 over 2, that's positive, so it's going to be on this side. Y, x, it intersects the y-axis at minus 3/4 and then intersects the x-axis at 3 over 2. You can draw it like that and just put here 3 over 2. And that's it. Okay, so I hope you feel much more confident in sketching straight line graphs. And if you liked the video, don't forget to give a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. Take care.